Today I'm going to be rescaping this tank. It has been just a holding tank or a quarantine tank for a long time now. It is where I reared my baby zebra danios a while ago, and it's time to now get it ready for some actual longer term inhabitants. So yeah, I'm just going to empty this tank out, strip it right back, give it a good clean, and then we'll get started with the rescape. First job when emptying an aquarium is always to unplug and remove the electronics. In this case it's only the heating that I'm taking out because the air driven sponge filter can just be popped into a different tank and doesn't need unplugging. I then remove any hardscape, large pieces of botanicals and plants, and I bin all of those so I don't need any of them. I use a net to get rid of the finer bits before siphoning out the water and emptying it out as best I can. So now I've pulled all the sand to the front, leaving a gap at the back. I'm going to add in some new sand, a slightly different colour, into that back section, and then cover it with the sand at the front, because this is the colour that is more suitable for this scape. This is a bit more sort of silvery grey, and I want to hide that as best as possible. So I'm going to use that to give me height at the back, but then cover it over with the sand that I want to use. Now it's time to level out the substrate and make sure that the darker, more grey coloured sand is not visible, like I said. So with the tank now empty and the sand in place, it's ready to do some hardscaping. I'm going to do a wood-dominated layout with loads of Java ferns growing in a central area. And I've got plenty of wood and plenty of Java fern, hopefully, kicking around the fish room, but some of them are already attached and potentially in the wrong places. So I'm going to strip some of the wood off, prepare it, ready for use, and then start playing around with some hardscape. When removing the Java fern from these old pieces of wood, a very young plec was hiding amongst it and came out onto the water on the lid. So I just popped that back in and then continued removing the plants. Building the hardscape is always fun. I'm sure everyone enjoys doing this as well. It's great to be creative. And with the tank dimensions, I didn't really have a huge amount of room to play with the size pieces of wood I had. So there was only really one or two orientations that would work for each piece. I'm quite happy with that as a final layout. I think it will change slightly as I glue it, because I'm going to use some super glue and lock down all of this wood. Some of it has been waterlogged and came out of a tank, so it will be absolutely fine and won't float. But there were a couple of pieces that are new and dry, and they have potential to float and ruin the layout. So I am just going to super glue it all together, and then we'll start adding some epiphyte plants, mostly Java ferns, I think. But yeah, overall, quite happy with the layout. The dominant force is just off centre, about a third of the way along, and all of the woods are leading towards that central focal point. And that's where I'm going to focus all of my planting and allow the wood to be sort of showing elsewhere. Using the typical cotton pad and super glue method, I'm just locking down the wood to the rocks. In some cases, it is necessary to remove one of the pieces of wood to get to a good anchoring point. Then I'll pop it back and glue it in place later on. So I've just got a load of Java fern Trident, which was donated combination of Aquarium Gardens and Tropica for the scape George and I did together. Well, George sort of did. And then I've also just pulled out a load of Java fern Narrow from my scape inside, and a few little bits of Bucephalandra. I think it's Katarina, but I'm not 100% sure. I can't really remember. It was many years ago I planted that. Gonna tidy off some of these roots to make it a little bit easier to plant. And see, big old healthy specimens. With the hardscape all glued in place and the plants prepped, it's time to pop them in. And where I can, I'm just going to pop the epiphytes into little gaps in the hardscape and in the wood where they'll hold naturally without the need to glue. But if I need to, a few of the Bucephalandras were a bit too small and where I wanted them wouldn't hold, I did just blob a little bit of super glue in place to hold them there until they get a chance to root. The idea here is to try and avoid having too much of the white super glue on show. So where I can, I avoid using it for planting. A final tweak to the sand, just to bank it up against one area of the wood, is all that's then needed. And then we are all good to ready to fill. That is the hardscape now done and planting finished. I think it would actually look quite good with some cryptocorns in as well, but at the moment I'm just going to leave it. I'm going to add some botanicals in a few days, I think, and see how they look in there as well. And then I'll go from there and make some fine adjustments as and when is needed. As aquariums are always evolving over time, you never have a finished product straight away, and I think I want to just have it filled and live with it for a bit to see how it is before I make any final decisions on that. But yeah, it's time to fill it up now. So then we'll install the heater and the filter, and we'll just let it sit in for a while and just see how it looks when it's actually full of water. I'm really liking how the tank's looking. It's been set up for a few days now, but it definitely needs some leaf litter and some botanicals added in, because at the moment it just doesn't have that Southeast Asian vibe, and it needs a bit of a tint to water and some detritus and breaking down botanicals on the sand bed. So I've added some botanicals into this pot. I've boiled them already, and it's time to add them into the tank. So that is the scape finished. Just need to wait for a few tannins to be released into the water to get that proper look. With the amount of ferns I used, I think it does automatically have a bit of a grown-in appearance to it, but that's only going to become even more dramatic as they take over that wooden structure. It's a really nice simple layout. We just used some classic bits of wood that I had kicking about. I didn't buy anything specially for this tank. Same with the dragonstone that I used. That was just bits that I had left over from previous scapes. The botanicals I used, we've got oak and beech leaves, all locally collected for free. A few beech seed pods, but a lot of them floated, so I picked them out. I'm going to boil them again and hopefully get them to sink, and I'll add those in at a later date. The other one that I couldn't collect were these bale tree pods. Now there's 3 of those, and they're not that expensive to buy from your botanical retailers. So yeah, in terms of the plants, all of mine were trimmings, but if you were to buy it all sort of new, I would say you probably want maybe 5 pots of different Java ferns, and then 1 pot of Bucephalandra to equate to what I used. It's really not too bad, and all the equipment I used is pretty achievable. Tank dimensions is 90 centimeters by 30 centimeters by 30 centimeters. You can probably pick up a glass tank pretty reasonably cheap. And yeah, I think it's a really nice little layout that is suitable for so many different awesome species. Let me know what you'd put in here. I've got my own ideas. None of them are concrete just yet, but I'll do a separate video on them when I've decided what I'm going to stock in here. In actual fact, it might change over a few months. But yeah, more on that later on once I can put fish in here. So yeah, thanks so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the build process for this simple scape. And I'll speak to you all soon. The tank has now been running for a good week or so, and I've added some mature filter media in. I've added botanicals and some water from mature botanical method aquarium, so it is looking and it should be functioning very similar to a mature aquarium. So that means we are ready to add some fish into this tank. And before I go and grab them, because they are already here, they're in one of my other tanks, I just want to point out the t-shirt that I'm wearing. You may have noticed it at the start of the video in the tank build section as well. It is, of course, an Alex B Aquatics branded t-shirt. And now I've just made a fair few different designs, and they're all available on my Teespring site. It is linked to my YouTube channel, and I'll put a link to this exact t-shirt with the small fish logo at the front and the full Alex B Aquatics logo on the back in the description of this video. So go and check it out. And treat yourself this Christmas if you're interested in wearing one of my t-shirts. There's also hoodies, jumpers, all those sorts of things, mugs, stickers. So yeah, go check that out, and hopefully you'll be seeing a few more of these t-shirts pop up on my channel over the coming months. So with that little plug, it's time to go get the fish. So before I release them, I'm just adding some water into the tank just to make sure that the two tanks have similar water chemistries. I did test them before, they are pretty similar, but I just want to be extra careful because these fish are very special. So, let's show you what they are. So here's the tub, and there they are. These are my Borneo Redline Halfbeaks. You would have seen them on my channel before, but there's only 3 of them left of the 6 I had, and only one of them is a female. So I'm going to move them into this tank on their own, in the hope that I can get some babies from them, because they're very hard to get hold of, and I don't want to lose them forever. The last thing to do is just to add some floating cover and something for them to lay their eggs into. And I've found that Limnophila sessiflora is the perfect option for egg laying material. So I'm just going to take some cuttings from my other tanks, add some of that floating at the surface, and then add some water lettuce as well, as that will just make them feel even more secure. But as you can see, they're out displaying, and in actual fact, the 2 males are competing over the female already, and they don't even look like they've just been caught and moved tanks, which is a really good sign. Remember to subscribe to the channel because you do not want to miss a following episode where I hopefully will have eggs and fry and juvenile adults growing up to show you. Otherwise, just hit the like button, let me know if you like the tank in the comments, and I'll speak to you all soon.